My beloved child, before you scroll away, listen carefully because what is unfolding around your connection is not ordinary. Something has shifted. Something that once stood between you and the person who keeps appearing in your thoughts has suddenly lost its place. The energy feels different now. The silence feels different. Even the moments that seem completely normal carry a strange weight behind them. Don't skip, because the next few moments may explain feelings you have been unable to put into words for a very long time. There was a third presence around this story, a distraction, a misunderstanding, a barrier that seemed impossible to move. For so long it looked like that obstacle would remain forever. Yet now, without warning, it has faded from the picture. And what happened immediately after that disappearance is what nobody expected. For a long time your soulmate carried something heavy inside their heart. They smiled when they needed to smile. They acted normal when everyone was watching. But deep down, they were fighting a battle nobody could see. The hardest part was not the confusion. The hardest part was pretending they did not care when they actually cared more than they should have. Every time your name crossed their mind, they pushed the feeling away. Every time their heart moved closer to you, fear pulled them back. Stay till the end, because there is a reason this story is finding you now. The third party was never the real problem. The real problem was the confession hiding behind their silence. They were terrified of what would happen if the truth escaped. They feared rejection. They feared timing. They feared that opening their heart would change everything forever. But then something unexpected happened. The distance started revealing things instead of hiding them. The absence of that third party created space. Space for reflection. Space for honesty. Space for emotions that had been locked away for far too long. And during one quiet moment, when nobody else was around, your soulmate finally admitted something they had never said out loud before. The confession was not dramatic. It was not loud. Yet it carried enough emotion to shake their entire world. They confessed that no matter how hard they tried to move on, their thoughts always found a way back to you. They confessed that every comparison ended with your name winning. They confessed that the connection they felt could not be replaced, copied, or forgotten. Something huge is waiting for you, because that was only the beginning of what came out of their heart. What happened next is the part that changes everything. After finally admitting those feelings, another truth followed immediately behind it. A truth so personal that they had hidden it from everyone. They realized the reason they kept holding back had nothing to do with the third party at all. It had everything to do with the fear of losing someone who mattered too much. They were afraid that one wrong step would push you away forever. They were afraid that honesty would destroy the very connection they were trying to protect. And as that realization hit them, something inside finally broke open. Don't skip. What they confessed after that moment carries a level of emotion they never planned to reveal. In fact, what came next left even them speechless. And when you hear the exact truth they finally accepted about you, it may completely change the way you see this connection forever. My beloved child, there is a reason the story did not end with that confession. In many ways, that was where the real story finally began. The moment your soulmate admitted they could not erase you from their heart, they expected relief. They expected peace. Instead, a flood of emotions rushed toward them all at once. Memories they had buried started returning. Small moments they once ignored suddenly became impossible to forget. A conversation. A smile. A glance that lasted only seconds. Things that seemed ordinary at the time began revealing their true meaning. Stay till the end, because what they remembered next was not something they could easily explain. It was the moment they realized that their feelings for you had started much earlier than they ever admitted, even to themselves. The deeper they looked into their own heart, the more uncomfortable the truth became. They discovered that every time they tried to move away emotionally, something always pulled them back. They met other people. They focused on different priorities. They convinced themselves that life would eventually lead them somewhere else. Yet somehow your presence remained. Not physically, but emotionally. Like a chapter that refused to close. Don't skip, because this is where the confession becomes truly powerful. Your soulmate finally admitted that they had been comparing every connection to the one they felt with you. Nobody reached the same depth. Nobody created the same feeling of familiarity. Nobody made them feel understood in the same way. And that realization frightened them because it meant the feelings were real, not temporary. Then came the moment that completely changed their perspective. One evening, while thinking about everything that had happened, they asked themselves a question they had avoided for a very long time. What if the reason they could not let go was because they were never supposed to? That question stayed with them. It followed them through their days and kept them awake during quiet nights. Something huge is waiting for you, because the answer they eventually found was not what they expected. They realized that the strongest emotion they carried was not regret. It was gratitude. Gratitude that they had crossed paths with someone who changed them without even trying. Gratitude that the connection existed at all. And once they accepted that truth, another confession escaped from their heart. They admitted that meeting you had transformed the way they looked at love itself. But the deepest confession was still hidden beneath everything else. The one they struggled most to accept. The one they never wanted anyone to know. My beloved child, your soulmate finally admitted that their greatest fear was never rejection. Their greatest fear was discovering that they had waited too long. They worried that while they were fighting their internal battles, life might carry you in a different direction. They worried that opportunities were slipping away while they remained silent. And that fear became impossible to ignore. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Because the next truth they uncovered forced them to make a decision they had been avoiding for far too long. A decision connected directly to you. A decision that could change the future of this connection in ways neither of you saw coming. And what pushed them toward that decision was a sign so unexpected that even they could not believe it was happening. My beloved child, the sign appeared when your soulmate was least prepared for it. They were not searching for answers. They were not expecting clarity. In fact, they had almost convinced themselves that staying silent was the safest choice. But life has a strange way of interrupting the plans people make when those plans are built on fear. One unexpected reminder brought your name back into their thoughts with a force they could not ignore. It felt different this time. Stronger. Clearer. As if every excuse they had been hiding behind was suddenly losing its power. Don't skip, because this was the exact moment when they stopped asking whether their feelings were real and started asking what would happen if they never expressed them at all. That question changed everything. The more they thought about it, the more they realized how much time had already passed. They remembered moments when they could have spoken honestly but remained quiet. They remembered opportunities that appeared and disappeared before they had the courage to act. Every memory carried the same message. Waiting had not protected them. Silence had not protected them. Pretending had not protected them. Stay till the end, because a powerful realization was forming inside their heart. They began to understand that some connections do not fade simply because people try to ignore them. Some feelings grow stronger in silence. Some emotions become louder when they are hidden. And the feeling they carried for you had reached that point. It was no longer something they could easily push aside. Then came the confession they never thought they would admit, even in private. They finally accepted that part of them had been watching you from a distance emotionally, hoping to see a sign that they still mattered in your world. Not out of obsession. Not out of control. But because their heart never truly left. They wondered if you ever thought about them. They wondered if certain memories still crossed your mind. They wondered whether the connection they felt was something you sensed too. Something huge is waiting for you, because these thoughts led them toward a truth that completely caught them off guard. They realized that what they missed most was not a specific moment or memory. What they missed was the feeling they experienced when they imagined a future that included you. That realization hit deeper than anything before it. And when that truth finally settled inside them, a decision began taking shape. My beloved child, your soulmate understood that continuing to hide would only create more regret. For the first time, they started imagining what honesty might look like. Not perfect honesty. Not dramatic honesty. Just real honesty. The kind that comes from a heart that is tired of carrying secrets. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Because while they were building the courage to face this truth, another discovery was waiting around the corner. A discovery connected to the third party that vanished from the story. What they learned about that situation revealed something shocking, something that explained why so many delays happened in the first place. And once that hidden piece finally came into the light, your soulmate could no longer deny what their heart had known all along. The next chapter begins with a revelation that neither of you expected. My beloved child, the revelation arrived quietly, but its impact was impossible to ignore. For so long, the third party seemed like the reason everything felt complicated. Every delay, every misunderstanding, every moment of uncertainty appeared connected to that presence. But when the truth finally surfaced, your soulmate was stunned. The third party had never held as much power as everyone believed. The real obstacle had been fear, assumptions, and unspoken emotions. Once those illusions began to disappear, the entire situation looked different. Don't skip, because this is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Your soulmate realized they had spent months, maybe even years, focusing on what could go wrong, instead of what could finally go right. And that realization shook them more than any confession ever could. As the pieces started coming together, another hidden truth emerged. They discovered that many of the worries they carried were based on stories they created in their own mind. They assumed certain doors were closed. They assumed certain opportunities had passed forever. They assumed your heart had already moved beyond them. Yet none of those assumptions had ever been confirmed. Stay till the end, because this understanding sparked something powerful inside them. For the first time in a very long while, hope returned. Not reckless hope. Not fantasy. Real hope. The kind that appears when someone finally stops running from their own feelings. The kind that makes a person wonder whether the future could still hold something beautiful. And once that hope appeared, it became impossible to push away. Then came the confession that almost broke them emotionally. During a quiet moment alone, your soulmate admitted something they had never dared to say. They admitted that the thought of losing you completely hurt far more than they ever allowed themselves to acknowledge. They could handle uncertainty. They could handle distance. They could even handle waiting. But the idea of a future where your connection disappeared forever felt unbearable. Something huge is waiting for you, because that confession unlocked emotions they had buried beneath layers of pride and caution. Every wall they had built started cracking. Every excuse began falling apart. And behind all of it stood one simple truth: they cared more deeply than they had ever admitted to anyone, including themselves. But the most surprising part was still ahead. My beloved child, after all these realizations, your soulmate stopped asking whether their feelings were real and started asking what action those feelings required. That shift changed everything. Don't skip. The heart that once hesitated was beginning to move toward courage. The person who once stayed silent was beginning to imagine speaking openly. The one who feared vulnerability was starting to understand that honesty might be the only path forward. And while they were wrestling with that decision, a final piece of the puzzle was quietly falling into place. A detail connected to you. A detail they recently noticed. A detail that convinced them this connection may be far from over. What they discovered next is the reason they can no longer ignore what their heart has been trying to tell them all along. My beloved child, the detail they noticed was small enough that most people would have ignored it completely. Yet for your soulmate, it felt impossible to overlook. It was one of those moments that appears ordinary on the surface but carries a deeper meaning underneath. A memory returned at the perfect time. A familiar feeling appeared without warning. A thought of you arrived so strongly that it interrupted everything else. And sudden.